Welcome back to the Meaningful Success Podcast, the show where a father and son do father and son things about success in a father and sonly way. My name is Josiah Clark.
Profound.
My name is Josiah Clark, and this is my father,
Wade Clark.
And it's his job to make this profound. So I just set it up, but he's the one who's got to bring it home.
Oh, gee, thanks.
So what's your profound thought to start us off with?
No high expectations, no lofty things there.
Yeah. So what's your profound thought?
I don't know. That's just really open-ended. Sometimes success is when nothing happens.
That is pretty profound. What does it mean, philosopher?
I don't know.
Well, speaking of nothing happening, we woke up early this morning to thunderstorm, really bad thunderstorm, and tornado warning. First, it was just a watch, and so Audrey and I were like, okay, we're going back to sleep, because who cares about a watch? Our family grew up in Tornado Valley. So many tornadoes, particularly when we lived in Missouri. And, you know,
and
we're
Atlanta,
still here.
And Tennessee.
Yeah. So there's been many, many tornadoes. And so, you know, perhaps there's a reckless foolishness to that. But also, it's not a warning, right? It's a watch. So we went back to sleep. So then a little while later, there's a knock at the door. Yep, just like that. And my dad's like, there's a tornado. Warning. And he said it just like that. And so we leaped out of bed within, 10 minutes or so, and got our house shoes on and stuff. We were all crammed in the little under the stairs closet,
including Emma,
the dog, our German Shepherd, who was very excited to have everybody all together in such a small space.
We were part of her den.
Yeah. So that's where this idea of nothing happening comes from. But what do you mean by success what does that mean?
There actually is some truth behind that, because there's times that we set our goals on things that we maybe not even really thought through, but we have these aspirations, we have these thoughts. We even see other people's perceived success and we say, okay, that's something that I want, rather than really thinking about it, taking a step back and determining, is that even what you want in the first place? Another example would be, speaking of housing, sometimes you set a course of action and you decide to ignore the warning signs because you want something, and you're like, I can work around these obstacles, these challenges. And I've got a little horror story of a home we purchased once that it's almost like that money pit thing from Tom Hanks movie, but it was even worse in some ways. But there were a few warning signs here and there, but we liked the house and we wanted to move things forward. And boy, that was we should have done nothing.
So you're saying in that circumstance, like, success being nothing happening would be like the absence of a red flag? Is that what you're
No,
kind of
I'm saying sometimes you're kind of blindly moving forward towards something and ignoring the environment, ignoring the things around you, or not taking the time to really think it through, being a little bit reckless, maybe.
Like going back to sleep when it's just a warning, or when it's just a watch, not a warning.
That would be an example. That would be an example.
In more of a career or entrepreneurial or creative sense, like, what is an example of when success has come through nothing happening for you? Because for me, I do think I have something. It's more of a redirection than an experiencing a big success of some kind. But I've had numerous times over the years where I tried to start a project, start an endeavor, and just didn't see any progress. Like, nothing really happened with it. I did the work, I made the stuff, I put it out there, and there was just no interest. Mm-hmm. And on the surface, that can sound like, and in the moment, it felt like failure. But really what it was, I look at it now as sort of a redirection, because there was that sort of thoughtlessness in a long-term sense to what I was doing. And there was a lack, like, for example, with my writing now, we've talked about having your values and your mission and that stuff that lines up with what you're doing. Writing books, writing stories much more closely aligns with my actual internal values in a long-term sense.
Yes.
Than trying to make YouTube videos that will get a number of clicks because I came up with, the funnier idea. It's not that there's anything wrong with that pursuit. It's not like I made a mistake in doing YouTube videos or things like that. But back then I looked at it as I was just a huge failure because I didn't get the numbers I was looking for. But I look at it now as actually kind of protection in a way. Like, I'm glad that sort of happened because I look at myself where I would be if those things had come through, if like all those dreams I had at the time had come about. I don't think I would actually be fulfilled because that stuff was not lined up with my actual values.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I have some examples of that. And honestly, some of the folks listening may have run across this as well, either for yourself personally or with someone that you were managing. But there was a time that I was leading a pretty large sales and marketing department at a company. And because of the size, weekly, I'd have people coming to my office talking about what's their next opportunity for promotion or advancement or this kind of thing, that kind of thing happening. And there were times that I would have people come in that were inquiring about kind of a redirect in terms of where they're focused in terms of their skills. And that can be actually a really, really good thing if it's something that is, to your point, lined up with where their passions and their aspirations are. But what I found was I had to ask some questions to kind of peel that onion a little bit to find out what was really motivating this. So, for example, there were people who came to me who may have had more of a marketing background who were interested in moving into sales. And that is actually something that is a viable career path. But when you started talking to them about it and you started asking them about kind of what things they enjoy doing, where they feel like they're strong, what really was motivating this, it really came down to money, and money.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really all it was amounted to because they recognized how much more some of the sales positions were making because of the commissions and various things like that. And again, you can have somebody who makes that transition, but you have to make sure that transition's not tunnel vision because there's a whole lot more to doing that job than that. So, for example, one of the reasons why sales professionals do earn a good living with what they do is that there is a risk factor. So if I'm in a whatever job, doesn't matter, let's just say something non-sales.
Yeah.
You have a large degree of influence on the strength of your career position because you can make sure you're on time. You can make sure you do your work diligently. You can make sure you turn in your projects on time, things of that nature. Pretty well, if you are you're developing and you're conscientious and you're working hard, you're probably going to be okay. However, if you're a salesperson, you can be doing all the right things and you can still have people say, no, I'm not going to buy. If you have too many of that, and it could be because of things that are completely out of your control. It could be, capacity to deliver. It could be that you don't have the exact product that they're looking for. It can be that the economy is turned and just people are just not in a position. They're hunkering down and not willing to spend right now. So there is a risk involved. And if there's too much time period where a salesperson doesn't sell, their job is at stake. And so there's that risk reward factor. So the reason I bring that up, when you're looking at things that you're measuring your success or you're looking at your aspirations, things you want to do, you really need to take that step back and really think about, well, what is this that's driving this pursuit? And does it line up with the things that you want to do? Much like what you were talking about. I mean, right now, I don't know whether you'd be completely fulfilled doing being a YouTuber, doing videos every day.
No, I wouldn't. This is something I want to talk about as an episode in the future, maybe for next week. I don't know. But there's this whole idea of life is short. You don't have a lot of time to do the things you hope to do. You can fall behind. This whole idea of this pressure
Mm-hmm.
And I've been finding in my life that that's really not true. It really depends on what kind of success do you really care about? What is the measure by which you are viewing your success, which is what this whole thing is about.
Yeah.
That's what all this meaningful success stuff is about, is it's redefining what is the yardstick that you're using
Correct.
to measure your success journey with. And for me, I've come to realize, it's like I said earlier, I've come to realize like what I'm doing now is so much more lined up with what's actually in my soul. I could do this long term, and I know that, and it's just part of who I am.
Right.
So much of the stuff with my YouTubing, particularly in my early 20s, was built around trying to become someone people would want to watch.
Yeah.
And trying to be someone else. You have to come to terms with who you actually are and be okay with that person.
Mm-hmm.
And come to like that person for who they really are, not who you sometimes wish that they were compared to other people.
I think that is the key. You mentioned the yardstick. If you're measuring your success, if you're measuring your goals on anybody else's yardstick, you're not likely on target.
Yeah. It's really strange because, you know, like I just turned 30. I'm in a new decade of my life. There's this thing that's like, oh, time is short. You only got 10 more years to, you know, make your life happen, to find success, to establish whatever, for absolutely no reason. There is this ticking time clock thing that especially people, you know, in my generation have.
And now you asked me to wax philosophical earlier, so I guess I'm going to wax philosophical now.
Oh, it's too late for that.
Thanks a lot. There is a bigger picture. There's a bigger picture with your life. There's a bigger picture with the impact that you're making, with the things that you are about, the things that really matter, even more so than what you can personally recognize in the moment. Mm-hmm. And you just described some aspects of your 20s.
Yeah.
If you, with your today's insights, walked up to you when you were 21, and you were trying to tell Josiah at 21 the things that Josiah at 30 now perceives and sees, would 21-year-old Josiah perceive that? Would he grasp it? Would he accept it? Or does it take that introspection, that stepping back and realizing maybe there's a bigger picture that I didn't recognize?
I think 21-year-old Josiah would accept it and would attempt to change direction.
Okay.
But for the wrong reason.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because 21-year-old Josiah, if me right now went and talked to him and told him, hey, here's what's going to happen in the next 9 years.
Yes.
The stuff that you think is your career path right now, it's not. And that's a good thing. And here's what you should do instead. And you can buy me 9 extra years of progress in my career by doing X, right?
Right.
Josiah at 21 was so desperate to be successful in a way of gaining value as a person that Josiah at 21 would have absolutely, to a T, done everything that 30-year-old Josiah said. But it's because of that false motivation of trying to become worth it as a person through attaining whatever success. And so 21-year-old Josiah with that information would not, like if I look back and I'm like, hey, I wish I had an extra 9 years of wisdom,
yeah.
Right? Me having that 9 years of wisdom, the way I think of my life could look like this now, that is nothing like what my life would actually look like if you gave 21-year-old Josiah that instruction.
He would have used it for the wrong reasons. He would have used it for the wrong motivations. What you're describing Biff when he got the
the sports almanac.
Sports almanac and Back to the Future.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, the thing is, even if he would have ended up becoming 30-year-old Josiah with whatever level of success, I highly doubt that he would have grown into the same person. that I am. So it's kind of like, it is really like a Biff situation. It's like creating a totally different person to do that.
So we've got people every place in their lives listening to the program. How do we take that and how do we apply that so that we can gain the most from guidance from others, from coaching from others, from observation of others? I mean, that's a lesson there, but how do we take that so that we don't take it in the wrong direction?
Well, there's an order to things. There's a reason why in this system of success, of meaningful success, you start with your values.
Correct.
If you start with your values and you develop those and you develop yourself as a person, then that is going to spill over into everything else in a far more healthy and holistic way than if you just focus on, well, what is the thing I'm going to do, which is
Correct.
the vision. That's
Correct.
skipping 2 steps.
That's correct.
So even though, I didn't get where I am in growing as a person by following this system in a conscious way.
Correct.
If I look at it more in a formative way, like I had to rediscover who I was as a person, and I changed drastically in a lot of ways and ended up rediscovering something in writing that I had kind of forgotten about.
Well, and it's not just who you are as a person, it's who you want to become as a person.
Yeah, which is a different person than who I thought I wanted to become even just 3 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why, the things that we talk about on this program, the things that are in that, as you talked about, the system or what's going to be in their Meaningful Success book and resources, is it's trying to take that natural order and walk it through so it's something that we can capture. It's kind of like, gravity exists. If I take this pen and I drop it on the table.
I don't know about that one, Chief.
What?
Gravity, is that real?
Yeah, exactly. It's there no matter what. And there's forces of wind, there's forces of air pressure and all these kind of things. And yet you just flew on an airplane. So here you have a heavy metal vehicle that's in the air despite gravity. As long as you understand the nature and forces and the things that are just kind of parts of life, and you take those steps to really understand it and take a step back and plan accordingly, you're going to be in a totally different space. That's why when we go through this process, it is setting your values and understanding those and clarifying those and growing into those values, those principles, those beliefs. That's why the mission is the next step, because that mission is that natural extension of those values and those principles and passions, basically your values put to action.
Yeah.
And then it gets into that vision element. And that vision, literally, you could today set 10 different visions, all of which could be perfectly aligned with your values. And it's a decision you have to make.
Yeah.
Problem is, if you don't know those first pieces, it's kind of like throwing some kind of picture on the wall and just saying, okay, well, I'll go after that because I think that that's success. And quite frankly, the thing that gets really confusing is that sometimes you're borrowing someone else's vision, and that vision may be right for them, but that doesn't mean that that same vision is right for you.
Well, you know what else isn't right for you?
No, what is not right for me?
My weekly favorite.
Why is that?
Because it's my weekly favorite. Your weekly favorite's right for you, though.
Oh, it's the weekly favorite.
So what is your weekly favorite?
My weekly favorite, we went on a plane trip to other places. And
mystical lands.
Yeah. And while we were on our trip, Audrey and I went to a beach at one point. It was just really nice to just walk on a nice beach.
Yeah.
Which is like the most stereotypical thing you could possibly say you like doing, is taking a long walk on the beach. But it's something I do very, very rarely.
Yeah.
And, we were just talking and it was, the weather was really nice and the water was like really cold. And so it contrasted really well with, it's kind of warm, but the water's cold and it's sort of cooling you off whenever it runs over your legs as you're walking along. And I don't know, it was just a really nice time with Audrey, and it's something I want to do again. So that's my weekly favorite.
That's awesome. Well, mine is not so much outdoors. Suzanne and I have been watching The Crown. It's a series, and I think we're on the 5th season now. And it's just intriguing because I didn't know much about I'm not one of these people who follows all the royalty and knows all this, that, and the other things. But it's just interesting, all the things, because you're learning history at the same time you're watching the storyline of the folks. And
Right.
it's pretty good. It's also kind of weird because between those 3 seasons, there's like been 3 entirely different casts of actors for the main characters at different ages of their lives. And so it's like every time they just switched again. So now it's like, okay, now it's the actress who was wearing all the pink in Harry Potter.
Oh, the lady who played Dolores Umbridge.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she's the queen now, is the third actress playing that. And so you're having to go, okay, wait, I know who that is. That this person, or is that? So you have to do a little bit of adjustment. But
Yeah.
but it's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, everyone, bye.
That was awfully abrupt.
Thank you so much for listening.
We appreciate it.
We appreciate it. We
Tell
appreciate
your friends.
you. Tell everyone you know. Don't
Email
stop at your
people.
friends. Tell your enemies. maybe your enemies will like it. I don't know. So until next week, everybody, thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Meaningful Success Podcast, starring Wade Clark and his son,
Josiah. Thanks.
This violet sky, I see.
The Meaningful Success Podcast is myself, Josiah Clark, and my father, Wade Clark. You can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/Meaningful Success Podcast. We are currently in the process of reworking the perks there, so if you subscribe in the near future, just be aware of that. You can also check out the website at meaningfulsuccesspodcast.com, where you can apply to be a guest on the show in the future, or leave us a digital voicemail at speakpipe.com/MSP to possibly have a question or something like that featured in the episodes in the future. Until next week.
See ya.